Alright guys, and welcome back to this series. Now sadly this isn't exactly the video I wanted to be making, but we're going to do some good stuff in here. We're going to do some troubleshooting and bug fixing, and since we're going to be continuing with the navigation, we're also going to make it work because I put in these links, but currently if we click on one, nothing actually happens. So we want to fix that and make sure that it does. And at the same time, I just want to give a big shout out and thank you to S.A. Bokhari, John Mercier, and Vukashin. The three of you guys helped point out a couple of mistakes that I made along the way. One of them is just a complete oversight by me, and the other one's this weird bug, or there's a couple of weird bugs that popped up, and I think we know how to, I figured out how to fix them, but we'll get there in a little bit. So this video is all going to be about fixing some strange bugs, as well as actually getting these links to work, which will mean a little bit more JavaScript. So what the first thing is, which was a complete oversight by myself, was when I click this, I get this nasty scroll bar down on the side here, which is no good. I don't want to have side scrolling on my website, obviously. So that one, luckily, is a really easy fix. I'm just going to jump right over here, my base CSS file. I want to be right on my body. And on my body, what I want to do is I just want to say that the overflow X is hidden. So I'm going to save that. So that just means anything that's overflowing left and right will disappear. We won't be able to see it. And I'm going to get rid of that so we have a bit more room. So let's click that and now see, and there it goes. Amazing. So that's nice and handy. Now, the other problem, though, is a bit more of a bug, and it's not something I could replicate in Firefox. I am using Firefox nightly, but I also tried it out in the regular Firefox, and I didn't see it in there. And what that is so if I come in and I look in the responsive mode here, everything seems to be working all fine and dandy, and I can even take the little hand icon because they put it up there, and there's a little delay, but that's normal because they're just trying to set it up so it looks just like it would on the phone. The problem happens when we come over to Chrome. So in Chrome, everything's working fine. It's looking great. We think it's all good. But if I do my inspect and I'm in responsive mode, so here again, everything is working fine. I'm going to go into responsive mode and I'm going to click and everything's okay. And we'll now watch what happens when I click this close. That was weird, right? Did you see it? I'll do it again. And we'll close. And it's this weird little flash and thing that's happening. So just to show you and give you a better idea of what is actually happening, I'm just going to come in here and I'm going to take my nav and let's just slow this down a little bit. I'll put it up to 1 second. But I'm still getting that weird buggy thing. So it's working okay. But then, boom. And the thing that's even weirder about this as far as I'm concerned is if I find my nav, where is it? My nav here. So it currently has a width of 343 pixels. And it's going to come. Now when I click the X, the width goes up. And it goes back down, and then it goes back up. And even if I just click on nav now, or if we go off and on, it's back to 343. So for some reason, the width of the navigation is getting toyed around with in responsive mode only. And this also means this is on your cell phone as well. I don't actually know what's causing this. One thing I tried doing is instead of setting it all up like this, I just gave this a width of 80%, and I'm going to save that. And I'm still getting the same problem. And then I said, well, maybe, oops, that should have, it's still, and it gets even worse now because now I get this and I can't do it. And that's a weird bug that's only happening sometimes. But I'm still getting it. And then I said, well, what if I even give it a width, like a set width? So if I said a width of 600 pixels. So even with a width of 600 pixels, well, that's probably too big. Let's try 300. I'll have to refresh my page. When I close, it's just bugging out completely now, which is really weird. So refresh, close, and it just bugs out. But if I go over to Firefox, it's fine. So I honestly don't know what's causing this. So if you do know, please let me know. Well, I sort of know what's causing it. I've narrowed it down to one thing, and it's position fixed here. So I'm going to undo and go back to the original code that I had this set up with. And I'm not sure why, but if this is position fixed, and I tried position sticky just to see if that would change anything, but it doesn't. But if I change this to position absolute, all my problems go away. Oh my goodness, look at that. Isn't that weird? So setting it to position absolute instead of position fixed solves all of those issues, which is really, really nice. The main issue that is still left over is when I click on that, if I'm using position absolute, it means that I can scroll down, and that's not something that I want. And while I'm here, now that I've scrolled down, I can see this little line down here. And a little while back, Anthony L. Suggested using the not to be able to select that. And honestly, I should have done that from the very beginning, and I just didn't think of it when I was doing it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this border bottom off, and we're going to come onto here. I'm going to say at. So this is I'm going nav li, and then I want to say not. And then in my not, I can say which one I don't want to select, and I don't want to select my last of type. So I'm selecting all of them except the last of type. And what I want to do for that is I want to put on my border bottom. So it should look exactly the same. It should just take this bottom one off. So I'm going to save, and there you go. You can see that one that was on the bottom is now gone. So that looks a little bit nicer, and now we can get back on track with what we were doing. So what we were doing was we don't want this to be able to scroll with this being on position absolute. So in this case, I want to limit the overall height of everything, right? So I was going to put it on my container all, but I'm wondering if I should just say that the body is set to the maximum height. So we're going to try that. I'm going to say that my nav is inside my nav is open again. I'm going to do I'm going to say my body and. No, that's not going to work. Oh, I'm being silly. If nav is open is a class that is being applied to my body. So what I can say is if nav is open, which means the body itself, the height of my body should be 100 viewport height and should have an overflow. I can just do overflow hidden now. I don't have to worry about X or Y. So I'm going to save that. And, oh, it's still scrolling. What if I just did overflow Y hidden? Oh, now it's working. There, it's working. So once that comes out, you can see now I can't. Whoops, that's not what I wanted to do. That sort of screwed everything up because it's open. Let's just refresh. I want to make sure this is working properly. Open. No scrolling. I have my links. Still no scrolling. Close. Now I can scroll again. And that also makes sense because when I open this, I generally want to be able to close it, right? I don't want to scroll down because then my little X would disappear. So this probably makes more sense anyway. So that's good. I think that's fixed that problem. The last thing is when I get to here, I want to be able to click on one of those and actually go to that area. So for that, we're going to go over to my index, and I need to set up these links. So I'm going to do my welcome, and this home one is kind of useless because we're already at the top. But anyway, ID is equal to home. We'll set it up anyway. I guess I could put it on the intro, but we'll leave it there. We'll have an ID is equal to about. We'll have an ID is equal to portfolio. And we'll have an ID is equal to, oops, not on that one. Scroll down, 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 down. And here we'll have an ID is equal to contact. So I'll save that. The page should refresh. And now I should be able to go there. And when I click on this, it should go to there. Aha, it worked. Except it didn't really work because I don't want to be looking at that. And I can at least I can scroll, but it's going to be causing some issues because of the whole body height thing. So if I go to contact, it'd go to contact, but that's not what I want. I want nav this is just, it's not working properly. And I'm locked into a height because of my overflow thing and all of that jazz that I was playing with before. So I'm going to refresh my page. And we're going to come over to my nav.js again. So we're going to bring in another variable. So I'm going to write in const, and this one is going to be the navigation itself. So this one is equal to my document.querySelector, and it's going to look for my nav. I could do a query selector all and look for all of my nav links, but what you're going to see, this is going to make it a little bit easier. So I just want to select my nav itself. The main reason I want to do this is I'm adding in another event listener. So I'm going to do nav add event listener. We're going to listen for a click once again. And if somebody clicks, we're going to do something. It's very similar to what we did before. So let's just make sure this is even working. So I'm going to do a console log, click, save that, and let's go see if this works. So I'm just going to open up my console, and let's go find my navigation. So if I click on anything here, doesn't matter where I'm clicking. Oh, of course, it's bringing me there. But we should be able to click anywhere inside our navigation, and I'll just click on this one a few times so we can see that it's working. And it's registering my clicks, so I know that it is working. And the advantage of doing it with my nav and not looking on each of them is right now I'm adding one event listener. If I did my query selector all, first of all, it'd be a little bit more complicated to set up the JavaScript because we'd have to go through the node list of all of, I think it's a node list, right? Query selector all. We'd have to go through each one, and we'd have to set up an event listener for all 4 of them. If you had 5, that's 5, and if it's 6, then you have 6. And event listeners, they're not free of charge. They can cause some performance issues, so you want to limit the amount of event listeners you have to the least amount possible. And it doesn't matter what we're clicking on here. The important thing is when we click, we want to make sure that the nav is no longer open. So I'm going to do my document body class list, and instead of doing toggle, I'm just going to do remove. I don't want to take any chances. So I'm going to remove nav is open. This might seem strange. You might see this is a bit of overkill to remove, and I could have abstracted this out into a little function and made it a little bit cleaner. But the reason I want to do this as a remove is the only thing I want this to do is remove. No one can click it when it's off the screen, but who knows if somebody manages to do something weird. So I'm just saying, if somebody manages to click on one, make sure that you're removing it and you're not toggling it. So if I click on home, it should close, and it did. If I go on about, it should bring me to my about. And it looks like we have a new bug. Man, let's get out of here. I just want to see how this is going to work here. See, it works. Chrome, you're not being my friend. So now it's working properly. It's kind of weird, I guess, that the page has to slide back in when I click. Okay, so I'm not really sure what's causing this bug, but I've sort of figured it out. So if I click here and I go, it works. So if we're in the normal desktop version, everything's fine. If we're over in Firefox, guess what? Everything's fine. It just works fine. If I enter responsive mode in Firefox, everything is fine. The problem is, once again, the mobile version of Chrome, which causes that weird thing to happen. So it transitions back and then jumps up. Now, one thing I noticed in Firefox is even if I'm in the responsive mode here, when I click on, say, portfolio, it just jumps there. I don't see much going on. Whereas in Chrome, you can really see the site sliding back in, and then it jumps. And if I turn off my transition for my container all, you'll see that when I click on portfolio, it works. So it has something to do with the transition, interestingly enough. But I'm not quite sure why that transition would be causing issue. Now, the transition was also causing, position fixed was sort of causing the other issue. Now, the thing I guess I'm wondering is what the best solution is. Because I definitely need it to slide when I'm pushing that and when I'm pushing the X, I want it to slide. But if I'm clicking on one of those, I don't want it to slide. So, do I keep this, or now this is where everything gets a little bit weirder. And do I need to come in? And the worst is I tested this on another site and I was just playing around and I don't have any of these issues. So I don't know if it's something I did in this site specifically that's causing it. If any of you have any insight, I would greatly appreciate it because this is literally driving me crazy. So what I'm going to do is, so I'm wondering if I should do my container all is equal to document. Do I need to do a whole document? I'm just trying to think. Yeah, document query selector, and it was my container all. And then what I could do, actually, we could turn this back on. Let's turn that back on. I think this would be easier. So it's on, and what I'll do is when we click with this, I want to remove the style. I'm a little worried that I'm going to break everything with this, but let's try it out. So when we click, I'm going to do my container all. I want to look at the style. I want to do my transform. No, I want to do my transition. Let me just look here. Is that just a, whoops, transition? Yeah, I'm just doing transition. So my transition is going to equal to 0 milliseconds, right? I just want to take my transition off. Let's see if that works. I'm not sure if that'll work. That worked. Now, the problem is that the style is still on there. So now when I click on this, and now that transition has left. The transition is no longer there. So I think now what I also need to do here is do a container all style transition. So if I'm clicking on my nav toggle, so actually, yeah, we'll get rid of this. We can just delete this. We don't need it anymore. This is going to come from our JS. Instead, so here we would have my transition is equal to, what did I have it as? Transform 250 milliseconds ease in out. So if I click on this, it's gonna it should be getting the transition. And if I'm clicking on this, there should be no transition, and it just jumps there, and it works. Yes. Now let's clean up this JavaScript a little bit, because we can clean this up a bit. And we can also do two things here. We can do 2 more variables just to help clean things up. So I'm going to do a const container. Let's just do cont all style. So then we can just take this, so we don't have to repeat ourselves so much, is equal to that. So that means I can just use this here instead. And, it's, yeah, there we go. Just a little bit shorter. And then I can also get rid of all this document body class list business by saying const body class list is equal to my document body class list. So instead of having to write all that out each time, I can just say body class list, and we can replace that here and replace that right there, just to make things a little bit shorter. It's sort of an unnecessary step, just making sure everything's still working, which it is. Awesome. I'm going to actually put container. I think it makes a little bit more readable. So my container style will the transition style and transition. Good. So I feel like this, I shouldn't need to have this. It seems to be working everywhere, but I do need to have it. And I'm glad we got that fixed up. So my links are now working. I think I've gotten rid of any weird, strange bugs that were happening. And if there are some strange bugs that you know of, please let me know. Or if you know why any of those bugs were happening, please let me know, because maybe my Google wasn't up to par today, but I just couldn't figure out what the heck was going on. So thanks so much for watching as usual. I hope you liked this video. And finally, in the next video, we will be getting into doing the modals. So the first one will be designing the modals, and then after that, we get into some pretty intense JavaScript actually to get it all working the way I want it to work. So that should be a lot of fun. I look forward to seeing you in that video. And until then, don't forget to make your corner of the internet just a little bit more awesome.